What up, everybody, and welcome back. And for those of you that are new, welcome to the Dogo Verdaderos. The podcast is dedicated to the true, authentic form of the Dogo Argentino dog. This is going to be part 3 of our installment with Las Pampas Kennels. Please give me a like, a share, subscribe. Let me know what I can do better. Without any further ado, part 3.
Today, a lot of people argue. Like one of them is that Antonio, you know, um, he didn't finish his work. So people take his unfinished work and think that that was the final notes of his work, and it
Yeah,
wasn't. Antonio was not able to finish it because he was murdered over a
yeah,
watch.
yeah. So,
That's what happened. It was a robbery. Somebody tried to steal his watch, and they murdered him. There's a lot of speculation that it could have been political and this and that. But that's most likely it was over a watch that he was murdered. Something my father told me. He was in Cordova studying when this happened, and he was very close to the family. Like there's things that we have from that Agustin passed to my father, in the '60s that show how much love Agustin had for my father. And
yeah.
one of them is we have actually the first deer they hunted. We have the skull of that deer dedicated to my father, from Agustin. We
Wow.
actually have that here in our home. Yeah, it was a small baby deer that they hunted. Him and Antonio hunted was the first thing they ever hunted, and we're talking the 1920s when they did that. And he gave that to my father. Aside from
Wow.
that, we have the notes, the original notes when Agustin was writing not just the standard, but the first book on the breed, which was his way of, explaining the process and what the breed was, because again, the everybody goes back to the 1947 Diana article as the first standard of the breed, but it wasn't a standard. It was more like a press release of
Hmm.
what the breed, it was,
Letting
like I
everybody know
said.
where we are so far and where we're going,
Exactly,
the
exactly.
idea of
Because
what we want.
yeah, it was a concept, the dog, and that's something that is hard to explain to people that weren't there.
Yeah,
A lot of people argue with me about this, and my knowledge is, firsthand knowledge from my dad, who was there. So I wasn't there. I was born 1982. And
yeah,
but I have all this knowledge from being there with my father because I was very blessed that I always knew I wanted to take over this kennel for my father out of my
yeah.
brothers and I, and I was always the one that was interested in this. So he involved me in everything he could. I went with him everywhere. I met all these people. I met, like the standard that we have, which is that my father compiled from all the original notes from Antonio and Agustin, and the standard that was used in 1964. I have all those original notes, and I transcribed that and put it in AKC format with my father and Ruben and Carolyn Harris. I'm the one that typed it up. I was, 13, 14 years old. I'm the one that was, my father was dictating to me, and so was Ruben, and I was the one that was typing it. And that, so I was, I have this first-hand knowledge because I was always involved. And, so the Dogo, in 1964 is when we considered the Dogo becoming the Dogo. And Antonio's vision finally fulfilled by his brother. Agustin, looked at all the dogs at the time, and he invoked the same thing that Antonio did, which was if a dogo was needed for breeding purposes or to demonstrate the breed, he could take the dog and use it as needed, right?
He
Well,
really
when he
managed the genetics.
yeah, yeah, because again, you know, there was so little stock at the time, and that's something that it's hard to fathom a world where there were only about 60, 70 dogos registered.
Wow.
That's not all alive, that's registered.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you think about that, the stock was limited, and very few people had dogos. So in 1964 we see this great moment happen So Agustin drafts the first standard. He submits it to the FCA. The Dogos accept it. They opened the stud registry with Cob de las Pampas, which was a dog that my father gave to Agustin. And then Cob's children were the foundation of a line that we call
So
our
Kolb was
Coleman line.
produced by us.
Yes, Cob was produced by my father.
Oh wow.
Yes,
Okay.
Cob de las Pampas was produced, and my father gave Cob to Agustin. Agustin used Cob when Agustin said he wanted to use Cob as a representation of the breed. Because he met what he felt was the standard. Then that was, and that's in his book. That citation, is actually on his
Hmm.
book where he chose Cob. He
I've
looked
read
at
that
two
before.
dogs at the time. He looked at Cob and Dai the Trevelin. Those were the two dogs he looked, and he chose Cob because he felt Cob exemplified the Dogo more, the most of any dog at the time. So my
And Dai
father
was a
gave him,
male as well.
yeah, they were both male.
Okay.
Yeah. And they were excellent dogs. Like I said, they were the dogs that, they were storied,
Yeah.
legendary dogs at the time, and they were, you know, they were amazing hunting dogs. Cobb was known as the lion killer. I mean, my father, below, and Agustin hunted dozens upon dozens of boars and lions, mountain lions, with these dogs, and then Cobb is what we call the foundation of our Tromen line. And Tromen, was Cobb's son, and it was a dog that we kept in our kennel. That was the deal. My father got to do the pick of the litter of cubs, and we kept actually 5 of the 7 dogs that were born of that first litter.
Mm.
And Agustin kept one, and we kept the rest. Okay, and those dogs, those 6 dogs, were actually the first Dogos to come to the United States in 1970. My father
So
brought the first six
you guys
Dogos,
brought Lion Killer
his children, yeah,
to the U.S. in the
yeah,
1970s.
in
Good stuff.
1970. Yeah, yeah. And I have actually the custom
Wow.
declarations, all that from us bringing the first Dogos to the States. There were articles in the newspaper about it. And that was when, so my father left Argentina to work. So, let me go back a little bit. So in 1966, my father was going back and forth between Argentina and the United States. He was actually studying, getting his second and then his third doctoral degrees. He got a doctoral degree from the University of Texas, and then he got another one from the Colorado School of Mines. And he got a doctorate of sciences and a doctorate in mineral engineering and oil exploration. So my father's normal profession was to take him all over the world, which was, he worked for, large mineral rights companies, oil, gas, and then he focused on gold. After that, his focus was gold. But my father is one of the people actually that wrote, his research paper at Texas was actually on the development of fracking. So he was very,
Oh
my
wow.
father was, yeah, he
And
was a
that
visionary.
was the perfect timing.
And he actually was the one that, created a lot of the research that developed, extracting oil from shale. So that's what he was doing professionally at the time. And then in 1970, he moved full time to the United States, and that's where he brought those dogos. He brought those 6 dogos from Argentina. He moved the kennel from Argentina to um, Quana, Texas. Okay, and at that moment in time, like I said, the dogo wasn't even, nobody knew what a dogo was in the United States. There were very few dogos outside of Argentina. There were very few dogos in the world, really, at that moment in time. Like I said, it was really crazy that the dogo was able to survive. Because it was the stock was still so limited in 1970. There might have been 100, 150 dogs in the world at the time.
Yeah,
if that,
especially traceable. I'm sure
Yeah,
there were more, but they were here and there in the
yeah,
streets.
yeah. So the dogos that are pedigreed at the time, that are accounted for.
Hmm. Yeah.
It was maybe 150 dogs, and so my father moves to Texas, and life takes my dad all over the world, Colombia, Asia. He because of his work, he travels all over the world, and then in 1978, my father goes to Colombia for 2 weeks. He was supposed to go for 2 weeks to meet some people and evaluate a project. And at that moment in time, he actually met my mom. And those 2 weeks ended up being 20 something years, that he stayed in
Nice.
Colombia. Yeah. And we lived in Colombia for, till 1990. We lived between Colombia and Texas in that time. And that's when we created, so we had, and then Pennsylvania. So we were living between Texas, Pennsylvania, and Colombia at the time. And
Mm.
that's when my dad really, really got hardcore about breeding. Like that's when we started creating a lot of the lines that are what we call, we have 3 lines that are completely different and separate in our kennel. And then we have 7 lines from those. Okay. And the lines are the Pennsylvania, which, they're dogs that Las Pampas Kennels dogs that are named the Pennsylvania. There's dogs that
Mm.
are named Los Andes. And then there's the what we call the original Las Pampas lines, which are the dogs that you can trace back to Cobb and Dogo de los Incas, that line. Okay.
Mm.
So that's when my dad really started developing, in at that moment in time, he got really hardcore. And we went from having, 10, 11, 12 dogs at a time to where we started having 30, 40, 50 dogs. Okay.
Mm.
Expanding massively on like right now in our kennel, we have about 30 dogs. That's the number that we like to keep it at now. 30 breeding dogs,
That's a lot of
but
dogs.
it's a lot of dogs. Our food bill is ridiculous. I think we did the accounting and it was like $250 a day that we spent on food.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Feeding the army.
Yeah. Yes. Feeding an army. So my dad gets really like, I mean, he starts, breeding and breeding because the dogo at the time is you can finally show it. And that's when my father got into showing the dogs and all that. And, we had like the first, we had like, we had dogos that were champions in Colombia, champions in Mexico at the time, champions in Argentina. And my dad started, he started
Oh.
having handlers go all over the world showing the dogs and all that.
So there were
And
dogos in places like Mexico and Colombia in the
at
early
the time,
90s and stuff.
yeah, in the 80s there were,
80s.
yeah, in the 80s. And then we won our first world show. I think it was 1986. And then we won 86, 88, 90. We bought the 93 world champions, so we've had in our bloodlines, before we stopped showing in 98, I think we had 9 FCI world champions, which is crazy
And
because I think the record now, there's a kennel that has 11, but they've been showing continuously. We stopped showing in 1998 when the standard changes happened.
wow, so y'all have all those winners by the original standard.
Yes, by the original standard. When they changed it, and this is something that is, it's heartbreaking to me because I saw the struggle, what happened, and the thing is that when you change, we have a very detailed history in the Dogo. There's a lot of people that argue and say, what, we don't have this or we don't have that, but we actually do. It's all been documented really heavily. It's one of the few breeds that we actually have that. And my father, he's dedicated his entire adult life. He's 83 years old, and these dogs have been part of a 73-year history of his life. So 7 decades of the age he's
Yeah,
been on this earth. That's
that's
kind of
family.
crazy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So, for me, you know, I've inherited, this fight that my father has been fighting, and that, to me, the Dogo is, it's not just, they're not just a dog to me, like
yeah.
my family's DNA is all over this breed from the beginning,
It's a
from
family
really the
heirloom.
beginning. Yeah, and to see what is happening to it, to see what, and look, I know that there's a lot of people that care about this breed. There's a lot of people that want to do right by this breed, but the problem is that the clubs, and I hate to say this, they care about membership. In
Yeah,
Argentina, the USA, and all over the world. The problem is not just here or there; it's everywhere, really. Anything that is a club, they thrive on membership. And instead of being exclusive, they're inclusive for everybody. So, if your dog has, brown spots, if your dog is possibly mixed with something else, you know what? We'll still accept you because we want your dollars. We want your membership
yeah,
dollars.
yeah. I will
And
make
that
it
is the
work.
problem, and that's the problem that, it's not advancing the breed. And, my father has always used this as an example to me. Look at the Neapolitan Mastiff. The Neapolitan
Yeah,
Mastiff, the Cane Corso is what the Neapolitan Mastiff used to be.
yeah.
They looked
It's
like,
exaggerated.
yeah, they looked like Dogos. They looked like Cane Corsos. Did not have this loose skin. They didn't have all these issues, these health issues they have today. Most Neapolitan Mastiff have a dysplasia. It's not to find one that doesn't. The odds are that they all do. That's how
Yeah,
bad
they're
that breed
almost
has
built
been
for,
damaged.
yeah, they're built incorrectly.
So the Dogo is going that route.
And that's why it's important that we get out there and get that true information out. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm not an
Absolutely.
expert at all, but I want us all to learn together. We can.
Absolutely. And that's something that, to me, it's really heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking because, my first Dogo that I had growing up, he was born a month before I was born. You know, that dog
Wow.
was actually a son of Truman Dos. No, a son of Truman 3. No, he was a brother of Truman 3. He was the son of Truman Dos. So he was a dog that was technically directly related to Colt. Okay, a great, great, great grandson. Okay, and that dog was my first dog. He was born in September of 1982. He died when I was 9 years old. In my bed, he slept in my bed. He was
Oh
my
man.
best friend. Like one morning, he just didn't wake up. But the dogs, these dogs, have been to me, I've had, a very different childhood because I didn't have just one dog. I have, in my lifetime, I've had probably over 800 dogs, maybe more. You know,
Wow. Yeah.
I've,
A few.
we have come across so many dogs in our lifetime. And every single one of those dogos I remember, I love, and and my father, everything with him has always been a learning experience. Like I was telling you, my father is, aside from the dogs, is an incredibly accomplished man. As a scientist, he was one of the most lauded in his time. He, and then professionally as a businessman, he developed some of the largest mining projects in Latin America. I mean, incredible, incredibly brilliant man. Him and I are actually working on a book about his life and the Dogos and how everything has been intertwined. Everywhere we went, we took
Please
our
do.
Dogos with us.
Please
We're
do. I
working on
think
this
you guys'
book.
family is romantically entwined with the breed. It would be
Yeah,
great to hear.
and even myself, my personal accomplishments. I've been very successful in the music business. And I've been nominated for Grammy Awards. I've won some, lost them a lot more. I've had I have many plaques in my recording studio for many big records I've worked on. But the dogs are my biggest pride after my children. They really
Wow,
are.
that's saying something.
Yeah.
That's really saying something.
And the fact that, we have achieved something that, like I said, it's crazy when you can look back and say, my dogs trace to the dog that was registered number one in the FCA. The first dog that was the example to open up the breed registry. When you look at that, you have
That's
a,
very difficult for many working breeds to say
yeah,
that they can trace it back to the original one.
yeah. The fact that Cobb is,
That's
Cobb was the great grandfather of my first dog. The fact that, you know, we have dogs that, like, we have a dog now, his name is Dardo. He's a complete recreation of Cobb in a lot of ways. His head's a little heavier. He's got a wider head, but he's very similar in look, in movement, and stature. He's not, our dogos are not that tall. We don't breed them. We breed them to standard. And it's always been our purpose to do so. We don't want our dogos to be 150-pound dogs, which is what people are looking for today. We don't breed our
yeah,
dogs to have pirate patches. Again, we don't want that. That's while today the standard allows that. Originally Agustin, when he wrote the standard based on his brother's notes, the code was all white.
yeah, yeah,
And that's something that upsets a lot of people today and that's why, a lot of people don't want that to be the standard because, a lot of people want that today. They want those qualities. And I'm not, we are purists in that sense. I'm not saying we don't get spotted dogs. We do get dogs with black patches every once in a while. And
yeah. That's going to happen with the breeds
it's
coming
going to
out,
happen with the
of
breed.
course.
Yeah, it is. It's something that is genetic.
Yep,
You could breed two spotted dogs and you won't get one, and then you breed two dogs that all have all white
yep.
coats and you get three spotted dogs. It's not something that. So I'm not gonna sit here and tell you, oh, we don't get spotted dogs. No, we do. We do. Every couple years we get one.
Well, this is a very young breed, if you think about it. From
It is.
1964, that hasn't been very long for breeding consistently from a breed that came from so many other breeds. So if you think about it, it's still, it's not 100 generations in,
No, no, and that's
because
something that. But the thing is that to keep the breed as you want it, as Agustin and
exactly,
Antonio wanted it, you have to work, with the original standard. You have to work with that standard from 1964. You have to work with with the vision that the
to be as
dogo should
tight.
be,
Yeah,
this animal between 23 and a half and 25 and a half inches at the withers. That they shouldn't weigh more than 100 pounds. In reality, the weight, we actually think that, a dogo can weigh 110, 115 pounds if it's a muscular build. I believe, we believe that actually. We
yeah,
think that dogos could
yeah.
be a little bigger if it's muscular, if it's healthy weight. And it's also about bone structure. Like one of my
To
favorite
have the
dogs that
frame
we
that carries it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And but the dogo has to be able to serve the function. They have to be able to, hunt. They have to be able to run. They have to be able to do their purpose. And when you see some of these dogs, that they say their dog weighs 150 pounds, that dog can't do the function. And that is the issue that we're having today. People want the dogo to be the size of a mastiff today. They're looking for bigger because they think bigger is better. But the dogo was
they want a
engineered.
white Cane Corso.
Exactly. The dogo was engineered for a purpose. And a Cane Corso can't do the job a dogo can. They can't. It's just physically impossible for them. Oh,
Well, especially what I've read about the running that they're able to do, like for
yeah, like
consistent amount of times, keeping up with
exactly,
horses.
like and that's the thing. You gotta remember that the Dogos, the proving trials in the late 50s, early 60s, to really fine tune the breed and pass those instincts in the conformation of it, the hunting, the ability to, because you got to remember these dogs have to be able to hold a 600-pound boar. They have to be able to, challenge a 175-pound puma. These are not animals that are meant to be slow. They can't be slow. Their ability has to be to move at, incredibly fast twitch muscles. And the Dogo was engineered genetically, with the breed San Antonio chose to have those fast twitch muscles. A Dogo actually moves more like a big cat than any other dog. If you
They
look at the
definitely appear
movement
that
of,
way.
if you look at the movement of a Dogo, and I'm going to tell you something, like one of my dogs that we have here inside the house, he's a very special dog to us because he was a litter that wasn't really supposed to happen. It was an older female that honestly we did the breed thinking it wasn't going to happen because she was a little too old. Okay. And she only gave us one puppy. And this puppy is very special to us. So we've kept him at home, because she couldn't take care of him. My wife actually hand raised him from 2 days old, if I
Oh yeah.
remember correctly. So she hand raised him from 2 days old. He actually died on her twice. She did CPR and brought him
Oh
back.
wow.
And he's now a 110-pound little monster. Okay. He's
I bet they're
108,
best
109
friends.
pounds. Yeah. And the way this is something that, it's interesting because it's just the kind of couch we have. We have like a big, big sectional, one of those sectionals with like two, electric, not the chases, recliners. Okay. So
Yeah,
it's one of
yeah.
those huge, huge sectionals, like, can sit 12 people. Okay.
Hmm.
And he walks on the side of it, on the top. Okay. He will jump up on the couch, walks on the top, and lays down like a cat laying on the tree. You know?
110 pounds.
Yes. On the little tiny thin section, where you put your head on, right? And that's where he likes to lay. And that's, and then when you see them hunt, these dogs, they don't move like dogs. They move, if you watch a lion pack hunt, that's the way they move. My father always said something. The Dogo is the closest you'll ever get to having a wild animal that you can domesticate and trust. And, he was always right in that. Every time he taught me that, I look at them now. Before I looked at them differently when I was younger as a kid. But today, since I'm the one carrying this baton and I'm trying to fill my father's shoes,
Hmm.
I look at them differently. And every time I'm looking at them, I'm studying them and I'm learning every day more and more, because,
Hmm.
I ask my dad questions every day still because I have so much to learn. I'm gonna tell you something, a lot of people tell me, you know more about these dogs than anybody else. And I tell them maybe, but I don't know as much as my father yet. My father
Yeah.
knows more about these dogs. He's forgotten more about these dogs than
Yeah, I
anybody else in the
imagine
world
so.
knows, you know? And every day I'm learning with him, every day, we go to the kennel, look at our dogs, watch them run. We look at their movement and he teaches me little things, he quizzes me, and all that because every day I learn something new about him. And, you know, these animals are incredible. To me, there's no animal, every single one of my dogs I can trust with my kids, every single one of them. My 6 year
That's
old, my
very important.
5 year old, and my 3 year old. I trust any single one of my dogs with them. I have no fear ever that my dogs would do anything to them. I have more fear that my kids will jump on them and, make them scared more than anything. You know what I mean? Because that's just, especially my youngest one, because she doesn't know, she's still 3 years old, so she's
Of course.
learning how to,
Yeah.
she's learning the world, right?
So do
So
you think that they would protect your children?
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Look,
And that's just naturally.
natural. I'm gonna tell you something. The dogo is very naturally protective of their family. There's,
I've noticed that as
there's
well.
it's something that, I have to say, the dogo is, they're so intelligent. They're more than just a hunting dog, and that's something that my father has always tried to show. Dogos, this is something that I tell people all the time. The dogo is the truest working animal. They want a job. They want to feel like they contribute to the family. They want to
Right.
feel like they are part. They don't want to just be a dog that lays around all day and does nothing. Dogos don't think that way. Dogos don't act that way. And no dogo will be happy with that life. So a dogo, needs to feel like they have a job. They truly only thrive when they have a purpose. And I tell this to people, the easiest purpose to give your dog, not everybody has the time, the willingness, or the desire to go hunting and kill a boar, kill a mountain lion, or whatever.
Very
People
true.
don't have that. Not everybody has that ability. It's just a matter of, some people just don't. But to the one that doesn't hunt, their dogo can be their guard dog and will be fully fulfilled with that job.
They
A
take it very
dogo,
serious.
yeah, they take it very seriously. I mean, used to tell you, a story, that I actually told you when we first spoke
Yep.
about our dog, about our female Stampa. She's the leader of the outside pack that is always loose on our property. They're our guard dogs, and they know their job is to protect the children. And they take that very seriously. And my youngest daughter, we have like a like a quarter, maybe half an acre sized lake on our property, you
Okay.
know and my youngest was running towards that. We were all outside, and my wife and I were talking, and we weren't looking at her, and this was about a year and change ago, so she was like 2.5. Okay, or two, yeah, like 2.5, because she's gonna be 4, so on April rather. So yeah, so this was about a year and a half, I would say. She once starts running towards the lake to jump in the water. And this dog is Stampa. She actually ran up to her. She grabbed her shirt with her mouth. She bit her shirt and picked her up and brought her to us.
Only the shirt.
Only the shirt.
Wow.
And picked her up
They,
and brought her to us. Like I said, I trust these dogs, you know, and I can only talk about the dogs of our kennel because we never really, we don't have, other people's dogs in our lines. Very rarely we have run in other lines, every once in a while, but it's usually one dog that we, every 5, 10, 15 years that we can do that,
yeah.
and we do
Yeah.
that to diversify our lines. We look for the best of the best that's out there, and usually we'll go and find it and buy it and bring it to our kennel.
Yeah.
But
When you got the original, it's kind of hard to add to that.
yeah, exactly. That is really the truth. So when we look to add, it's something that we look for something really special. So like I said, I can only talk for Las Pampas Dogos, but you know I trust every single one of them with my kids. I know that they keep them safe. When they're playing outside, we got a fully fenced property, but the world's a crazy world out there. I
Very.
feel safe. I really do still feel safe when my kids play outside in their playground with the
Okay.
dogos running around them. I know that they're safe because, God forbid someone jumps that fence, they better get good with God because they're going to meet him.
They're coming to
You
see
know,
him.
yeah, the dogos will send them straight there. Like anybody, and that's something that I've always told people, dogos, I tell people you should have a gun. If you're comfortable with a gun, have a gun. I'm a big Second Amendment guy. I
Hmm.
love guns. I'm a gun enthusiast myself. But I
That's
always
part of
tell them this
America's freedom.
afterwards. Exactly. You know, I, there's something that I gotta say that I love about this country, and it's that I feel very blessed that I'm here. I feel very blessed that my daughters were born here. And in spite of all the issues that this country may have, it's the best place in the world.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
those freedoms are primordial to that. Not to get, not getting political anywhere from, just, you gotta
No,
love
I
this country.
understand.
You gotta
You
love
gotta.
this country because we truly are the freest place in the world.
You're
At
right.
least that
We're
I've
lucky to be able
experienced
to
it.
do what we're doing right now. There's countries that can't
No,
even have the Dogo.
exactly.
At that
You look
basic
what's
level.
happening in the UK.
Yeah.
Australia. They banned the dogo over there.
Australia would be a perfect place for dogos with the way they do boar hunting over there. But
Yeah, but they
legislation's
don't
not
let
letting
them.
that.
It's ignorance. It's ignorance.
Yep.
Absolute
Yep.
ignorance. Dogos are not a dangerous breed. They really are not. A well-bred, properly socialized dogo will be the best dog you could ever have. We have sold dogos for people that use them as service dogs. We have sold dogos to people in law enforcement. One of them is a U.S. Marshal. That his dogo is actually a U.S. Marshal officer dog. He uses it to catch, fugitives. The dogo
Wow.
runs, catches them, and just the way they catch a boar, this dog is catching fugitives.
Yeah,
So
it's a
I
catch
gotta tell
dog,
you,
run and catch dog.
hmm that's his partner. The dog has a badge and everything. If a criminal was to hurt that dog, they'll be hurting an officer. It's like,
Wow,
yeah, yeah. He's
that's
an
cool.
officer dog. So,
Okay, so speaking about Las Pampas, your kennel and your
yes.
breedings, the temperament. So, would you feel that same comfortability taking your dogs off of your property? There's a lot of things where people like to take their dogs to the beach, to the woods. They like to go to dog parks. What do you
Well,
feel about at least
okay,
your dogs
okay,
outside of
so
your property?
this is, that's a very touchy subject. I trust my dogs. What I don't trust is other people's dogs.
Bingo, bingo.
I
I
trust
agree.
my dogs, but I don't trust other people's. And you know, this is something that, is very, very hard to explain because people think your dog's a problem. But if a dog, and I hate to use bad language, but if some asshole, and it's usually a guy, that
Yep,
has one of the other big breeds that aren't as well behaved, because
yep,
dogos are actually very intelligent. But somebody that has, an American Bully or a Rottweiler, and they think that they're being big and tough, and you tell them, listen, keep your dog away from mine, and it's not because we're afraid of their dog, it's because we're afraid what our dog will do in response to their
yep,
dog's stupidity.
yep.
And that's something that is an issue. A lot of people do not properly train their dogs.
Well, I think that needs to be
So
explained by the breeders a lot. They sell dogos and they don't let them know the liability that's on their hands.
of
Not that the
course,
dogo's going to get hurt, but it can
no,
definitely do some damage. It's not the dog to take to everywhere else,
no, no, no.
Petco and
Like,
stuff.
I gotta tell you, one of my dogs, and this is the thing, you have to properly train the dog. Like, there's a dog, Stampa's a dog that I've taken with me everywhere. Like, I'll give you an example of something. When there's been times, and I'll give that, like, I'm traveling for business or something, and my wife has to go and take the kids by herself to drop them off at school.
Hmm.
So what she does is she loads up, the youngest that's not in school yet, and then the two girls that are in school, and she sits Stampa, the female that's the leader of our outside pack of our five dogos. She sits her in the passenger seat and she takes them to school with her. So
Safe.
there are dogs that, because that way, she feels safe.
Hmm.
Like I said, we live in a crazy world, and thank God Florida is still a very good place to live,
Yep,
but things happen, and this is what I tell people, have a gun, but the dogo won't miss. If you're in danger, that dogo will protect you. Nobody will protect you better than that dogo. That dog will die for you, and then will get up and die again if need be. There is no animal more loyal. There's no animal with a stronger heart, and there's no animal with the will to do whatever it is that will please you than a dogo. There is no better dog. I've never seen one. I know people that breed other breeds of dogs. I know a guy that breeds kind of corsos. I know people that breed, you know, American bulldogs, bullies, that bullies excel, all those breeds. I know, because you meet them through they go to the same vet that we do.
Of course.
And so I know a lot of these breeders, and I'm gonna
Dog
tell
people
you,
are
I've seen,
dog people typically.
but I gotta tell you something. I know the Dogo's the best breed. I know the Dogo's the most intelligent, and I know that a Dogo is the most loyal. These dogs, if properly trained, properly socialized, can handle any situation. And I don't think you can say that about any other breed. They are dogs that are truly family dogs. Like Cane Corsos are like single master dogs. Usually they imprint on one person. You know, Tosas, Inus are the same way. Fila Brasileiros are the same way. They imprint on one person. Now they love their family, but they're really more like one person in the family's dog. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
The
Yep.
dogo, the dogo becomes a part of the family. They love everybody equally, and they'll protect everybody in the family equally. The dog is an incredible hunter, and that's something you can't take away because that's the formation of the breed. That ability to pack hunt is what makes the dog a part of a pack, and that mentality. They
That
live and
natural
die for their
loyalty.
pack. Yes, absolutely, exactly, that natural loyalty. So, when people ask me, what is the dogo? And I tell them it's whatever you want it to be. The dogo can be your protector, it can be your hunting dog, it can be your best friend. I'm gonna tell you something. I've had, a bad day at work or something. I come back from the studio and I just couldn't get things done. I couldn't create the music I needed to create or whatever. And I'm just feeling down. I come home and my dogs are the first one to know, and they come up to me and show me love. You know, and
Sure.
and they know immediately. There's no animal like that. I mean, yes, all dogs are wonderful, and the world, people don't deserve dogs. People are crap and dogs are amazing, but dogos are the top of the top. There is
They're
no
worth the
animal.
sacrifice for sure.
There's no animal that will love you like a dogo. You know, like
Okay, so
you know.
let's speak about some of your, I guess, most impressionable dogos that really left a mark on you, even from maybe ones that you haven't seen from the history.
Well,
What's some that you think everyone should know about this dogo?
obviously, those dogs in the '60s that really were the what my father, Agustin, and Bilo, and all those other people that were there in the beginning
Hmm.
consider the formation of the final step in the breed becoming a breed. And I would say like Cobb and Dai the Trevelin and
Hmm.
those dogs, that legendary, those two dogs were very important to the formation of the temperament that was
Mm,
wanted in the dogo. The temperament,
that
the look,
fire,
the ability.
that finish.
Yeah. And then I would say that, we've had some incredible dogs along our lines. And there was one for me, my first dogo Chimbi was just, he was something special. I still get sad when I talk about him. I still miss him. I
It's like your brother.
yeah, like, when I was young at that age, when I was, 6 to 9, I had a really tough time in school. I had a lisp, and I wasn't, this cool guy that I'm now, I guess, the music producer, having
No.
JC's phone number on my phone. You know what I mean? I wasn't this cool guy that I'm now, but in elementary school, I had a rough time. I was bullied and all that, and he was my best friend. You know, I, that dog, he was, like you said, like my brother. And I, you know, the bullying that I experienced because of the lisp that I had really sucked. And my dad, he's a very tough man. He's very tough. He's that generation, that like he always told me,
Shut
if you
up
get
and
in a fight.
figure it out.
When I was a kid, he told me, if you get in a fight, you better win, because if not, I'm.
Thanks for tuning in to Dogo Verdaderos, the podcast dedicated to the true, authentic form of the Dogo Argentino. Let me get a like, share, subscribe, and we got part 4 coming up. Peace.